Hello friends, and welcome again to a PPT type of video class. Today we are going to discuss about the source code management in Magento 2, and I have created a PPT in which I have collected couple of points that you can directly use or will be really very useful for further purpose. Now, source code management, Git is the perfect tool that you need. Magento uses Git. The person or the people that are coming from a SVN background or like SVNs till now are not a Magento 2 cup of tea, but I should really recommend you to use Git. And there is a very good lecture available on Udacity for understanding it. It's by Google and it's freely available. Now, Magento 2 source code is actually managed using Git. Any patch or upgrade you will get from Magento will be installed via Git only. And first of all, we will discuss how we can initialize a repository inside our Git, and then how we use gitignore file. I'll show you what Magento's gitignore file look like, and then what should be under our source control and what things should not be included into the source control, and then the advantages and how we are going to work with the upgrades and patching. But there is a build process that is associated with Git, but we will be discussing this in a separate lecture which is dedicated to building pipeline and pushing code on the live server. So we will skip that today, and I have collected couple of commands that I'll be using in this lecture, and I'll give you the brief idea when I'll implement that, but you can use them, or I'll share this list with you in the description somewhere. And that is the overall agenda of this course. First of all, we will be discussing about the Git and how we can initialize the repository. So I'm going to escape from here. I'll open a I'm in my Magento folder. I'll go to the root, and actually let me open a terminal. Let me go to my cd detail lamp htdocs magento folder. Okay, this is my Magento root. Now whenever you are going to work with Git, you can either clone a repository, or you can create your own repository. We will be creating our own repository, for instance, but I'll also let you know how you can clone a repository. So first thing you need to do is, Git is by default available in the Linux systems, but for Windows you can also use Git or install Git. In Mac it's also available, so there should be no problem installing it. In my system I have already installed Git. Now first thing that I need to do is I'll perform git init, but before that let me go to this folder and perform control H. This is how I show all the hidden files. The files that starts with dot are actually hidden files. Right now there is no .git folder which we are expecting to be created when we will perform git init command. Now I enter git init and I'm pressing enter. It's giving me that initialize the empty repository. Now if I go to my folder again, you will see that there is a .git folder. Now to study everything in here, it's not important, but on high level let me tell you, Git actually work on the branching structure. You can create various branches. There are various hooks that you can trigger. For example, you commit some code, you can hook something. Info is the general info. Objects are every change that you're going to perform in your file will be tracked as an object. So let's say you create a file name and write A inside this, and after that you write B, so only the changes are stored in Git and they are managed as object, and the objects are pointed using references. So for that we have the refs folder, and head is the position where our Git repository right now is. Now when I initialize the empty repository, I can perform git status. This gives me everything that is inside my uh, inside my directory or root directory, but these files are showing in red. They can show in some other color in your terminal, but ideally they are indicating that these files are not tracked till now, so they are untracked files. To track these files, I can perform a command git add dot. Git add dot is actually create an index of all these files into our .git folder, and let me go to my .git folder again, and I right click on it. I'll click on properties. Okay, 52.0 KB. Now if I go to my this folder and I click on git add dot, everything inside this repository is going to be tracked by my git system, so it may take bit time. Let's see what it's doing. Okay, it's taking a bit longer than I have expected, but let's go to our folder structure. Let me refresh once, and I'll right click on that and I'll click on properties. You'll see that the size here is increasing. So what is happening right now is, when I perform this command, everything that I have inside my root folder here is actually being tracked by my git system. So git is tracking them, git is creating their references and objects, as shared earlier. Git is tracking their references and objects inside .git folder, and the size of these folder is actually increased, so we are seeing overall size increase. Further details about understanding Git can be searched online, and we will not cover into this course. Next thing here is we can perform git status again. You'll see that we have a long list of files here. So these files actually are now tracked and the color has been changed. So when I perform git add dot, I have staged those changes. Now I can push them to my repository, but to push something on my repository, I have to add my repository. So I can use git remote add origin and then my repository URL. In this way I'll be able to add a repository, and then I can git push origin master. My code will be pushed on the intermediate server. But this is how Git works, and we are not going to cover this in our today's lecture. But in Magento's concern, we are going to be working with the gitignore file of Magento tool. Let me open my browser, and my default browser is something else, so I'm just copying this and pasting in directly. Okay, so this is the gitignore file that Magento ships, and this is really very important, because if you understand any project's git file, you will get an idea what's going to happen inside that. Okay, first thing to understand is the folder's name or the file's name written here are not going to be included into our source code management. So if you see that build path or cache or metadata or these like hidden folders are not included. The Atlassian is for a software specific, NB project is NetBeans project, the sitemap is for sitemap folder, .idea, .get attributes, these are not included. So these are actually related to your tools, so we can ignore them, because nothing related to a person's tool should be going on to our version control system in any project, and that's what happening in Magento as well. Now if you see app code Magento or app design all Magento, the code inside our app code Magento folder should not be going into the Git repository, because first thing is Magento sometimes ship their code into vendor folder and sometimes into app code and Magento folder. In vendor folder you will receive the code when you installed your Magento using Composer, but if you have cloned the Magento repository, you will see your code in app code Magento folder. So Magento's code is actually fixed and that is not created by you. You should not be pushing it into your version control system. For example, you can just push your composer.json file onto version control system, and when someone else is going to pull that code, they can perform a composer install command, and inside vendor folder Magento's core code will be automatically fetched. And same can go for app code Magento as well. Based on Magento's version, they can fetch their code for Magento. You should not push any of the Magento's default code on your repository as far as the framework's core file and core modules concerned. Apart from this, other file like index.php or some files that resides into test folder, they are important because they are not the part of, they are actually part of the bootstrap process that needs to be there for initializing our application. But we should not take the code from someone else business logic related functionality which resides into vendor slash Magento folder or app code slash Magento folder. Now inside app folder we have etc folder. So let me go to app and etc. The files here are actually dynamically created. When you install Magento using Composer, this file is created. The same goes for vendor path. env.php is created when you set up your Magento from your setup wizard. The config is created based on your modules configuration and the DI. So these files are actually created when you install your Magento, so were not part of the core. And for one more example is env.php is going to contain your database related information, the database passwords. So you should not be shipping your database password on source code management systems where someone else can access them. Everyone will have their own personalized etc folder. Okay, next thing is app i18 Magento. Now i18 stand for, okay, I18, I know you guys know, and 18 word is like the spelling here, it contains 20 character. In between you have 18 character, they has been hidden. So I is the first character, between we have 18, and then it ends with N. So I18 folder actually relates with the languages and internalization or internationalization, I think, yeah, internationalization. And the language are actually fixed. You have, if you don't make changes in here directly in Magento, so you should not be pushing that again. This is again similar to Magento's core code. Inside app we have mentioned everything, or the dot, the file that has something, and then in between they have dot, and after that they have dot. I don't know why they have put it, but in under your app folder, if you design your own theme, then you should be pushing your theme out. Okay, the bin contains Magento's binary files, and dev test contains Magento's core test. So if you're going to push your application on production, you should not push your test folder. They are used only on the development process. So till development, your git file can skip them by adding a hash before them, but on production they are actually not necessary, so you don't push them for production. Other things like lib folder or any setup folder, you don't need them, so you can push them as well, you can ignore them as well. And the vendor folder, as discussed, if your Magento is installed using Composer, then vendor folder should be excluded to be going on the version control system. So that's a high level specification. You just need to understand that if a code contains a third party dependency, or a code has been obtained from any third party, for example Magento, for you creating a project, Magento is a third party, for a PDF library is a third party, so that can be get from any place. So you don't need to push that on your source code management system, but instead you just push your own personalized code that you have written for that particular application. Now what should be in your source control I've already discussed. What must be avoided is the vendor folder, and any code that relates to Magento's core module should not be going there. Next thing is anything that relates to the images that are generated on the runtime. The generated folder for Magento, that was not mentioned in that gitignore, but the slash var folder where the temporary file creates, the generated folder, the inside pub you have static folder. So these folders should not go onto your version control system. And the last thing to discuss is Magento's upgrade and patching can actually be done using Git. So when there is a patch release, you can just apply a git patch command with the patch file name, and Magento will automatically patch that. So it's really very simple. When there will be a patch, you can patch using Git. And this was all about Magento source code management. One thing to note here is you should be using Git only. The second thing is make sure your gitignore file is very precisely designed. You don't push things that are extra, otherwise your git folder size will be continuously increasing, and that may be a problem in future. I have faced such problem. So you should not push everything. You should know what should be included and excluded, which will give you better understanding on Magento's core. And then when you're going to patch or upgrade Magento, you can use your source code management system. So that was all for source code management. See you in the next lecture. Thank you. Bye.